All right, let's jump right in and talk about one of the absolute biggest headaches in any modern organization. You know the drill. You've got these incredibly complex digital systems, and then you have all the paperwork, the plans, the policies, the reports that says everything is perfectly under control. But let's be honest, how often does what's on paper actually match what's happening in the real world, especially when the pressure is on?
This right here, this is the exact scenario that keeps leaders up at night. All your dashboards are flashing green, the audit reports look squeaky clean, but you've got this gut feeling, right? This nagging sense that the whole thing is way more brittle than it looks. Well, that feeling is a warning sign of a really dangerous disconnect.
You see, at the heart of this problem are two completely different stories being told at the same time. On one side, you've got what we call the paper system. This is the world as it's designed to be. It's all your policies, your design documents, your neat audit trails. It's clean, it's orderly. But then you have the living system. And that's the messy, complicated reality of how work actually gets done. It's the daily operations, the clever workarounds, the unexpected incidents. It's reality. And when these two systems start to drift apart, you get a gap.
And we're not just talking about a little crack here. We're talking about the governance gap. This is the space where that whole green on paper, fragile in practice problem lives and breathes. It's where risk starts to quietly build up, totally unseen. And it's pretty much where the next major incident is just waiting to happen. Why? Because the paper system says one thing, the living system is doing another, and almost nobody is connecting the dots between the two.
So the big question is, how do you bridge that gap? Well, that's where something called the Digital Value Management System, or DVMS, comes into the picture. Now, it is so important to get this next part. This is not another heavyweight framework that you have to go and implement. Just forget that idea. Think of it more like an operating overlay. It's like a special lens that you put over your organization that helps you finally see, manage, and most importantly, reconnect the paper and living systems you already have.
At its core, DVMS organizes all the work you do around a really simple but powerful model: create, protect, and deliver. It basically argues that thinking about innovation, risk, and operations as separate things is a huge mistake. They're all part of one single, unified system. The whole point is to create new value, new features. But then you have to protect that value from all the things that could go wrong. And of course, you have to deliver it all consistently to your customers. Create, protect, deliver. All one conversation.
Okay, so if DVMS is this overlay, how does it actually work? What are the nuts and bolts that make this thing tick? Let's peel back the next layer and look at the core components.
So, the overlay functions by organizing everything your organization already does into 7 minimum viable capabilities. And look at this list. These are things you're already doing. You're setting direction with govern, you're checking if things are working with assure, you're designing new stuff with design, and you're making updates with change. See, DVMS doesn't invent any of this work. It just gives you a way to make it all visible and see how it all connects.
Now, looking at 7 capabilities that cover pretty much all your work, that can feel a bit overwhelming, right? You can't just sprinkle this everywhere at once and hope for the best. So the really crucial question becomes, where do you focus? Where do you apply this overlay to get the biggest bang for your buck?
The answer is incredibly elegant: at the boundaries. A boundary is simply any point where work or value crosses a gap. Think about where one team hands off a project to another, or where your system connects to a third-party supplier, or even where a person has to make a critical decision or approval. These are the natural hotspots where complexity and risk love to hang out, and that makes them the absolute perfect places to apply the DVMS lens.
And what do you do once you've identified a boundary? You run what's called the assurance loop. This is basically the engine of DVMS. You start with intent. What are we trying to accomplish here? Then you apply your capabilities to make it happen. But then comes the most important step. You gather evidence of what's actually happening, not just what the reports say. And finally, you use that real-world evidence for learning, which then loops all the way back to fine-tune your original intent and your capabilities. It's this beautiful, continuous cycle that directly connects your high-level strategy to the reality on the ground.
Okay, I know this might still feel a little abstract, so let's get practical. Let's talk about what DVMS actually looks like when people use it. One of its most powerful features is how it creates a common language for people in very different roles, from a team manager all the way up to a federal regulator.
If you're a manager, DVMS is basically your translation tool. It takes those big, lofty, strategic goals from leadership and helps you translate them into concrete capabilities and real-world trade-offs at the specific boundaries you're responsible for.
It makes governance stop being this abstract thing you do once a year and turns it into part of your daily operational rhythm.
Now, for regulators, this is an absolute game changer. I mean it. Instead of spending all their time just checking for the existence of documents and policies, auditing the paper system, they can now start sampling the actual behavior of the living system at its most critical and risky boundaries. They can focus their attention on the places where a failure would have the biggest impact on the public.
And this table just lays it out so perfectly. You can see the shift from the old world of activity-based compliance, where the focus is just on having artifacts and the goal is to prove controls are in place. We move from that over to outcome-based regulation. Here, the focus is totally different. It's about the behavior of the system when it's under stress. The evidence isn't a checklist anymore. It's the real data from your assurance loops. It's what you learn from incidents. And the goal? It's not just to be compliant. It's to demonstrate that your system can learn and adapt.
So what this all boils down to is a fundamental change in the central question we are asking ourselves. We need to stop asking, can we prove we are in control? Which is, if you think about it, a very static question that's stuck in the world of the paper system. Instead, we need to start asking, can we demonstrate that the system learns? That is a dynamic, living question that gets right to the heart of what it means to be truly resilient.
So that's the whole ballgame right there. It's this incredibly powerful shift in focus. It's about moving away from just managing activities and shuffling paper around, and moving toward genuinely governing for real-world outcomes and resilience.
And the payoff for making this shift is huge. By reconnecting your paper and your living systems, you get to move beyond what's basically just compliance theater. You start to build genuine organizational resilience, a system that can actually bend without breaking, because it's built on a foundation of coherence between what you say you do and what you actually do every single day.
So, to wrap this up, I'll just leave you with one question to take back to your own organization. Where does your paper system diverge the most from your living system? Because finding and naming that gap, well, that's not just some academic exercise. It is the first and most critical step toward building a resilient system that actually, truly learns.